Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to Late Night Learning. I am your host, Dr. Anthony Palomba. Now today we're going to be continuing our discussion on video game perception. And so in this particular lecture, we're going to be going through different kinds of emotions that we feel, taste, touch, sensations, things that we know about attention, and really thinking about how consumers are affected by their own sensations and their own senses. Now, as you're watching this, you might be sitting down, you might be at the gym, you might be doing other things and kind of just listening to this as you're going along about your day. But on a subconscious level, our senses are in constant work mode. Our senses are engaged with our world around us, and they kind of keep us going, so to speak. No, we're not always paying attention to what we're tasting in our mouth or smelling or hearing or what have you. But our body is always working these senses that serve as triggers, that serve as measures for our own environment to keep us safe, to alert us to danger, and to also keep us abreast of opportunities and good things as well. It isn't always danger that our body senses are worried about. And of course, all of our senses are plugged into our own brains, which subsumes all of the information that is gathered and then distills it to make decisions about what we'll do. So if we see a red traffic sign, we know to stop. Or if we see yellow, we know to move with caution or what have you. And so in this lecture, we're going to be going through sensations and how they impact and help push along video gameplay. So let's get started. Mood management versus perceived emotional intelligence. So in our last lecture, we talked a little bit about emotions. Emotions are key in video gameplay. I, in fact, did my dissertation on perceived emotional intelligence. This idea about how much awareness do video game players possess while they're playing video games. Certainly on a subconscious level, a lot of things are going on. There's information processing, there's goal motivation, there's time, there are other elements and variables at play, arousal even during video gameplay. However, one thing we are constantly managing and nurturing and attempting to erect or exact homeostasis is our emotions, right? Everybody wants to be even keeled. You don't want to be sad too long. And I suppose all of us want to be happy forever, but obviously it doesn't work out that way. Life doesn't work out that way. We only know happiness because we know what pain is as well. And so consumers subconsciously manage their emotions. This is according to Zillman in 1988 regarding mood management. We do this on a subconscious level. This is what he argues. We may consciously manage or repair our moods sometimes, though, according to Salovey et al. 1995. And so there have been studies that have looked at how we manage our moods on a subconscious level. People might be put into a happy state or a sad state in an experiment and then asked to choose a song or a program or a video game to manage their emotions and then report how they feel thereafter. So that's a pretty basic experimental design that is wrapped around testing this concept across a wide gamut of mediums. Perceived emotional intelligence, flipped kind of in a 180-degree way, is this idea that, well, what about how we're feeling during video gameplay? What about how we perceive what we're doing during video gameplay? What about how we interpret what we're actually doing? So we know on a subconscious level, certainly if you're in a bad mood, you might listen to a sad song. Or if you're just broken up with your boyfriend or girlfriend, you may listen to a sad song. Or you may listen to a happy song, right? Sometimes we manage our moods differently. But in an actual a self-aware state, how do we manage our own intelligence or emotional intelligence? So this idea of perceived emotional intelligence is how aware we believe ourselves to be. in managing our own moods. Consumers engage in media consumption for entertainment, pass the time, relaxation, socializing, and even catharsis. Sometimes we just want to feel good. Sometimes we just want to live vicariously through a character or to have some sort of release. And so certainly we may play Call of Duty. Certainly we may play Gears of War. Certainly we may play Assassin's Creed or Fortnite or League of Legends. And we may say to ourselves, you know what? I just need to pop off a few rounds of ammo against some aliens or some enemies or blow somebody's head off, right? We know that catharsis is very, very powerful and it gives us a release. No, nobody here is looking to do this in actual reality, but there is a release that video game players experience when they engage in cathartic video gameplay. So in this picture, are the video game players actively or subconsciously managing their moods? And that's kind of what's key here to reflect upon. We don't know. When we look at players, we don't know if they are necessarily subconsciously or consciously managing their emotions. This is where experimental design gets tricky in trying to measure this. Let's keep going. Vision, kind of a departure away from perceived emotional intelligence and mood management. Vision is key in video gameplay. Vision is absolutely key. So with vision, colors are exceptionally important here. And we can see here blue equals relaxed feelings, yellow is happy, red feelings of arousal, purple is royal. Black is luxury or fear. We can see with video games to the left of the screen like Batman and Hitman, yeah, certainly black is lethal. It's luxurious. It's devious. It's evil. It's violent. And so color schemes are employed in video games to serve as cues for consumers to know what to expect. Let's keep going. We can see here in one study that in fact, the way that we perceive color is in part due to what country you may be from. And so if you're a video game designer, and if you're designing games for white Caucasian audiences and Japanese audiences, you might have to be careful with the color white. For Caucasians, white means purity. After all, most Anglo-Saxons pride themselves in being Christian or Catholic or Protestant, and so that color, white, has been used for centuries to designate purity, to designate holiness, to designate weddings and new beginnings. But if we look at Chinese and Japanese and Korean countries, it means death. If we look at China, Japan, and Korea, the color white means death. We can see here with the color blue, though, under Anglo-Saxon, blue means high quality, and it does so for Chinese, Japanese, and Korean cultures. And so some colors have similar meaning, and some don't. We know green sometimes is envy, right? Green with jealousy, green with envy. We have that phrase in the United States. But if we look at our Latin American brothers and sisters, they agree with us. But if we keep going, our Chinese brother and sisters believe green to be pure. Our Japanese brother and sisters believe it to be love. And Koreans tend to believe the color to mean purity as well. So we have an issue here, as you can imagine, when we're trying to design video games and video game characters and making the colors resonate with different audiences. Some video game publishers will pull the trigger on this, so to speak, and color characters differently, color worlds differently, color video game covers differently. Other video game publishers, they basically go by their own intuitive domestic color scheme, if you will, and publish the video game as is, with accepted colors for domestic audiences. Let's keep going. So, if you did not believe me so far with color schemes, you can see here that, yeah, colors are very, very vital to video game developers and to companies in general. So we can see here optimism, friendly, excitement, creative, trust, peaceful, and balanced. You can see here, as you're going through these companies, they're thinking very, very, very carefully about how they color their brand. They're thinking very carefully about optimism. About what does it mean to be optimistic? Do we want to be optimistic? Do we want to be friendly? Well, Nickelodeon wants to be friendly. We know McDonald's is yellow, warmth, optimism, fine. With excitement, there's a certain boldness. So we see Coca-Cola, we see Nintendo's, we see Kellogg's. For creative, we see sci-fi, we see Yahoo. For trust, we see Dell, we see Oreo, HP, computers. For green, we see peaceful. We know Microsoft has that, as does Starbucks. And then balance, we have the New York Times, we have Apple, Nike, all of those things. And so when we think about a color guide, and there's many, many different kinds of color guides. This is not the only one. It's just important to think about what video game players have in front of them. What kind of colors are in front of them? It's a detail that we take for granted because unless we're colorblind, we see colors all the time. It's not something we actively think about, right? Back to the beginning of this lecture, our body at a subconscious level is digesting all of the color around us as we speak. You're not thinking about the green sofa you're on right now, or the black sofa, not unless you really stop and think about it, right? As we turn our heads around, you can turn your head around to the room that you may be in, or the park that you're in, or whatever outside dwelling that you're in. We're not actively thinking about all the colors, we just process them. And so here, it's really crucial to remember video game companies spend extra attention on color. Let's keep going. Odor. Odor is probably not something that you've experienced with video games, at least not yet. But odor, as has been documented in marketing studies, especially nostalgic studies, helps us be transported to something else. If you think about the smell of your grandmother's cookies, if you think about your mom's Thanksgiving turkey, if you think about different kinds of instances and experiences, you're immediately transported. And odor has been found to be one of the most powerful ways to transport people to different emotions. We also feel different things. If you think about the first time you smell a pumpkin spice latte, you know it's fall, you can just feel the coolness in the air. Or maybe it's smelling that first burger on the grill, knowing, summer's around the corner. It's Memorial Day is right around the corner. Chlorine, if you smell chlorine, you might say to yourself, yeah, summer's coming. I can smell the pool water. I know it's coming. Or salt water, you might say, I can, the beach is right there. I can feel the breeze. And so odor is very, very powerful with summoning our emotions, our feelings, and our memories. We also get aroused. We get excited. If we come home from college, if we come home from a vacation and food's going or something else smells good, we get excited. Odor can arouse us. We get excited when we smell things. We get excited when we smell maybe candles or maybe food or maybe a lover's perfume or cologne or whatever it may be. And it ultimately stokes interest. Ultimately, we become interested in everything else that is attached to the odor. Let's keep going. Sound and naming strategies. Audio watermarking. Sounds are crucial in the video game industry. We know that when people are walking in a video game, you might hear the scruffle on the floor. We know that we may hear a video game character screech, "Ow!" every time they get hit or pummeled with something. So sounds and jingles are really, really key for consumers. But do words mean anything to us in video game play? Well, they do. The letter X represents extreme and youth. So we know anything with X, extreme, X this, X that, is usually youthful, it's usually extreme, whatever it may be. We also have plosives. These are words that start with B, C, D, G, K, and P, and T. They escape from the mouth more quickly and are more direct, harsher, leading to more easily recognized and recalled brands. So what we have here are things like Call of Duty. You can see the C and the D there, right? Gears of War. We can see that. We can see a lot of different items there. NBA 2K. K. That's kind of a harsh sound right there, right? So a lot of video game companies are also concerned with the way that they name their video games. If you want something harsher and direct, Super Mario Bros. It resonates with us. Consumers resonate with harsher sounding words, more easily recognized and recalled. Donkey Kong, D and K. And so Kirby, another Nintendo video game. And so we can see that all of these letters are crucial in really creating that association in people's memories. We also have sibilants. These are words that start with a soft S or C and maybe more romantic or serene, like Chanel. And so some video games may opt for a soft S or C. It depends though, because a lot of video games tend to be a bit direct and a bit more engaged, and so they may opt for plosives instead. Let's keep going. Touch. We think about touch all the time. Haptic is another word for touch in the academic literature. It's code. So if we think about a video game controller, if we think about holding something, we have ownership over it. Don't believe me? Next time you're with your friends, or you can do it now, pick up something that doesn't belong to you. Please don't steal. And so if you're holding something of someone's and it doesn't belong to them, give it a few seconds. Don't do anything. Just, pick it up, hold it, wear it maybe. As you're experiencing this, you might feel a little bit more ownership, that it's kind of a part of you. Maybe a little bit. Perceived ownership is incredibly, incredibly important. Consumers imagine that they are touching an object. They are likely to feel perceived ownership, especially when their eyes are closed. If we close our eyes and if we think about a video game console, we think about a video game handheld device, we perceive ownership over it. That feeling is instilled upon us even more when we're actually holding the physical object. Objects that we consider that we possess ownership over will be associated with how we perceive ourselves. So we may perceive ourselves to be classy or bougie. And so if we get the opportunity to hold a Rolex watch, we may perceive more ownership over that than a regular generic watch. Handheld video games and consoles, such as the Nintendo Wii U and the Nintendo Switch, allow us to not only hold the controllers, but to physically immerse ourselves as part of the action. And so when we go shopping for video games, those of us who still go to the physical store, what do they always have? Demos, right? They have the video game consoles in the store for us to kind of try out. Why? Because they want us to have perceived ownership over it. Next time you go purchase a car, those of you who may need a car in the future, listen carefully to the car salesman as he tells you, you're going to be able to see yourself in this car. Well, if you take it for a spin and you're sitting in it, you're getting comfortable in it, you might have perceived ownership over the car, especially if you see yourself as a luxurious kind of guy or girl, or if you see yourself as a sporty guy or girl and you're in a Maserati, or if you're in a Lamborghini or whatever it may be. And so touch is crucial in video game play. Let's keep going. Taste, probably not something we're going to be dealing with too much in video gameplay, though with 4K developments and with 5K developments, anything is possible with consumers. And more 4D experiences are being created. Can I redo that slide, Keith?
Yeah, just start again.
Okay.
Give me 1 second. Let's cut to here. All right, when you're ready.
Taste, probably not something we're going to be dealing with in video gameplay that much. Although with a lot more 4D experiences being showcased and exhibited at theme parks and elsewhere, it is not outside of the realm of possibility. And so taste receptors are crucial and critical here as they evolve over time in consumers. Extrinsic sources such as consumer reviews are found to interrupt formulation of consumer taste perceptions toward products. So we know that there are external factors that might influence how we perceive taste. If I tell you that something is sour, you might say, oh yeah, I can kind of taste that it's sour. Consumers may have particular expectations from brand labels that might impact their taste experience. And these cues can create confliction among consumer perception of products. And so not only is it when we taste something, we are also influenced by external brands, but we also are influenced in our judgment. It's not enough just to say, oh, it looks like it's going to be sour. I can see this. It's being advertised on the box. As I'm eating it, I have expectations. And based on what I've been told, I will render a judgment. And so in video gameplay, and I mentioned taste and odor, which I know are two senses that currently are not part of the video game experience, but for our children may very well be. It's important to think about these sensations because they are the next step in full immersion during video gameplay. Let's keep going. How perception is construed. Exposure to a particular stimuli. We all have a sensory threshold. We all have a sensory threshold. And so Weber's law says, we are exposed to something, some sort of perception, and that serves as a baseline. Subliminal perception is also critical here as well. We do have perceptions that are underneath our own self-awareness. So again, as we rotate our heads around the room, as we rotate ourselves around our parks and cities and wherever else we may be, we're constantly perceiving the world around us. It doesn't shut off. And Weber's law says that we kind of adjust our perceptions over the course of time. We might have a baseline for something, and then we kind of adjust it accordingly. And everybody has a sensory threshold, right? Some of us might hear a dog whistle, others may not. If you don't, chances are you're older. And so perception varies by age. It varies by our own cultural experiences. Let's keep going. Attention. So it's difficult to grab everyone's attention. This is not something that is easy to do. Some video games demand more attention than others, creating a state of sensory overload and multitasking. And we do this all the time in video gameplay, don't we? We have to get coins, we have to get swords, we have to get points, we have to get into the car, we have to run over these people, we have to kill a bad guy. We're constantly thinking about different things that might be occurring during video gameplay. I have to chop wood so that I don't starve to death. I don't want to go hungry, whatever it may be in the video game itself. And so we tend to have sensory overload and multitasking during video gameplay. Particularly in mobile video gameplay, this is heightened. If we think of Red Dead Redemption, if we think of Visage, if we think of a lot of different video games that require a lot of attention, that kind of attention is really hyped up in mobile video gameplay. Why? Why is attention heightened in mobile video gameplay? It's to keep our attention, because mobile video game producers know that we're on the go. They know that when we're playing on our cell phones, that we're probably in the park or on the subway or in a car or whatever, that we don't have and probably won't spend a lot of time on the cell phone because there are a million other distractions going on externally as well as other apps on the cell phone. So to compete in this, to kind of rush things, to kind of give you that shot of dopamine because you've done so well at Candy Crush, the experience is heightened, it is sped up, and ultimately there are numerous metrics that are placed on the screen to keep you immersed. How does this impact how video games are designed? It's a matter of size of screen. We know that attention, we know that pace of movement, we know that immersion happens on bigger screens. And so video game developers first have to think about where the video game is going to be on the screen. How big is the screen going to be? What buttons will be available? And then construct a design around how to keep consumers' attention. And it very well may be that you get awarded every time you hit 1,000 points on Candy Crush, or every time that you build several farms in Farmville, or that you are able to construct 2 Springfields in the Simpsons mobile video game app. Whatever the challenge may be, if it keeps your attention and if it's sped up and heightened, you are more likely to be invested in the video game itself. Let's keep going. Attention continued. The manner in which we read impacts our attention and impact of stimulus. We tend to read from left to right, so ads that are placed on the right-hand side of magazines or on most screens tend to be more appealing. We read from left to right. That's why when we have side-scrolling video games, everything is from left to right. It is built around the way that we consume information. Consumers are drawn to visual stimuli before verbal captions or stimuli. We are visual creatures, usually a bit more so than verbal. And so video games, more so than print magazines, that's for sure, more so than TV screens, are able to capture our attention because not only is it all based around visual imagery for the most part, but it's rapidly changing visual imagery. Video games go faster than movies. Video games go faster than television, with some exceptions. Video games go faster than the radio. Video games go faster than newspapers or magazines. And so this requires more multitasking, this requires more investment in immersion, and this requires also a great deal of attention. So as you can see here, there's a lot going on with video gameplay. We can see that with attention, we can see that with touch, we can see that with hearing, we can see that with odors, we can see that with a whole host of things, that the video gameplay experience can be distilled and organized, and you can kind of create a typology around how our senses impact video gameplay. Think about the green or blue that you see in a video game. Is it peaceful and tranquil maybe? Think about potential odors that you might smell, especially if you have the window open while you're playing video games on a Saturday morning. You might smell the grass being cut as you're kind of in a digital field yourself. It enhances the overall video gameplay experience. Well, that's all the time we have on Late Night Learning. As always, keep laughing and keep learning.